The disappearance. What would you do if everything you built for 29 years collapsed in a single moment? Not in a dramatic explosion, but in the quiet, suffocating realization that the person lying next to you had been betraying you for 18 months. I didn't rage. I didn't confront her. I did something far more devastating. I vanished. And what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about forgiveness, second chances, and what it truly means to start over. My name is Warren Harris, and this is the most painful story I've ever had to tell. I'm 52 years old. Or at least, that's who I was. For 27 years, I was a financial consultant at Henderson & Blake in Chicago, the guy who helped millionaires protect their fortunes. I was the man who could see disaster coming from a mile away. Which is painfully ironic, because I was completely blind to the disaster happening in my own home. But before we get to the destruction, let me tell you about the dream. Because every great tragedy starts with a beautiful lie we tell ourselves. The perfect life that wasn't. Jennifer and I married at 23. We were kids, really, full of dreams and that intoxicating belief that love alone could build a fortress against the world. 2 years later, our daughter Emma came into our lives, and that fortress felt complete. We had the beautiful Tudor-style house in Oak Park. The vacations to Maine where Emma would build sandcastles and Jennifer would laugh, a real laugh, not the hollow ones that came later. Her Northwestern graduation. The path of a life that looked, from the outside, absolutely perfect. But I was building it all wrong. I was building it alone. My career was a mountain I kept climbing, thinking that each summit would finally be high enough. The bigger the client, the bigger the paycheck, the bigger the proof that I was succeeding. The Bishop account, a family worth over 50 million, became my obsession. For 3 months, I practically lived at the office, breathing recycled air and financial spreadsheets. I missed Emma's 27th birthday dinner. A milestone birthday. And do you know what Jennifer said when I told her I couldn't make it? She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just looked at me with this hollow expression and said, "I expected nothing less." Those 6 words haunted me for years. The moment everything changed. Last April, I came home early. Actually early. For once. I'd closed a major deal and wanted to surprise Jennifer with reservations at Eli Near, that Michelin-starred restaurant she'd been mentioning for years. Her car was in the garage. The house was empty. I called out her name through the halls, checked the backyard, walked toward our bedroom. And that's when I saw it. Her closet door was slightly ajar. Inside, on the shelf where she kept her winter scarves, there was a phone I'd never seen before. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. It wasn't locked. The messages went back 18 months. His name was Richard. He was her tennis instructor. And the latest message, sent that morning, read, "Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Last night was incredible." I stood there, staring at that little screen, and something inside me didn't just break. It shattered. Completely. Like glass hitting concrete. 29 years of marriage. 29 years of what I thought was building something unbreakable. And in that moment, standing in my wife's closet, everything I believed about my life disintegrated into dust. The choice that changed everything. I didn't confront her. And looking back, maybe that was my first mistake. I should have screamed. I should have demanded answers. I should have fought for something. But instead, I did something far more devastating. I slipped that phone back exactly where I found it. I walked downstairs. I sat in my car in the garage for nearly an hour, hands gripping the steering wheel, unable to move. When Jennifer finally came home carrying grocery bags and humming to herself, I helped her unpack. Like nothing was wrong. "You're home early," she said, surprise in her voice. "Closed the Wilkerson deal ahead of schedule," I replied, my voice steady while placing cans in the pantry. All the while, I was dying inside. We ate salmon that night at our kitchen island. The same island where we'd eaten thousands of meals before. She talked about a new exhibit at the art museum. I nodded. I asked appropriate questions. And the whole time, I was wondering if Richard had touched her before she came home to me. That night, I told her I needed to take a drive to clear my head about a work issue. She barely looked up from the dishwasher. "Don't stay out too late," she said casually. I drove past the elementary school where Emma once played soccer, past the park where I'd taught her to ride a bike. 29 years of memories were bleeding into me on every corner. I ended up at Lake Michigan, watching the waves crash against the shore in the darkness. And sitting there, with the water stretching before me like an escape route, it hit me. Crystal clear. As bright as the stars above the lake. I couldn't stay. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't hear her excuses. I wouldn't watch her cry, real tears or crocodile tears. I didn't know anymore. I couldn't sit in a marriage counselor's office and pretend we could fix something that was already broken. I had to disappear. The night I became a ghost. I drove to an ATM and withdrew $3,000, the maximum daily limit. I checked into a roadside motel outside the city using cash. The room smelled like cheap detergent and old cigarettes, but it was a place where Jennifer would never find me. I called Emma. "Everything okay?" she asked, surprise in her voice. It was late. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," I lied. My voice was steady, but inside I was fracturing. "Listen, I might be out of touch for a few days. Work project." "That's weird timing," Emma said. "Mom just texted asking if I'd heard from you." After I hung up, I turned off my phone. I couldn't face Jennifer's calls. Couldn't listen to whatever story she'd prepared. That night, I barely slept. I kept seeing those messages. Kept imagining them together. By dawn, my decision was made. I wasn't going back. A man can only take so much betrayal before something fundamental breaks inside him. And I was broken. Completely. So I made plans to start over somewhere new. Somewhere she couldn't find me. Somewhere I could forget. By morning, I had disappeared from my old life entirely. The disappearance deepens. The next day, I walked back into my bank. The bank manager smiled at me as I withdrew another $5,000 from our joint account. "Going somewhere special, Mr. Harris?" he asked pleasantly. "Just getting my affairs in order," I said, forcing a smile. He had no idea how true that was. I closed my personal account and opened a new one at a different bank. I went to my safe deposit box and removed my passport, my birth certificate, and the gold coins my father had left me. Every tie to my old identity. Then I visited Arthur Simmons, my lawyer, a man I'd known for decades. "Warren, you look terrible," he said as I entered his office. "What's happened?" "Jennifer's been having an affair," I stated flatly. "For 18 months. I'm leaving." Arthur's face fell. "Have you confronted her?" "No," I said firmly. "And I'm not going to. I need your help, Arthur. Complete discretion. I'm going to disappear for a while. I need you to tell Jennifer nothing. If she files for divorce, I'll sign whatever's needed." Arthur listened without judgment, then nodded solemnly. "I'll handle everything on this end, Warren." "But Warren, your daughter." "I'll contact Emma when I'm settled," I assured him. I left Arthur with power of attorney over my assets and disappeared into the Pacific Northwest. The metamorphosis. The ghost takes form. 3 days and 4 bus transfers later, I arrived in Portland, Oregon. I'd chosen it randomly, a city Jennifer and I had never visited, with a climate opposite to Chicago's. The constant drizzle matched my mood perfectly as I checked into a modest extended-stay hotel. For 2 weeks, I barely left my room except to eat. I grew a beard, something Jennifer had always disliked. I bought clothes from thrift stores, flannel shirts and work boots that my financial consultant self would never have worn. Slowly, methodically, I was becoming someone else. A ghost of who I used to be. When I finally emerged from my cocoon of grief, Portland was waiting. One rainy afternoon, I wandered into the Portland Botanical Garden. The lush greenery and quiet pathways soothed something in me that had been jagged and raw for weeks. "First time here?" an older gentleman asked, noticing me studying a Japanese maple. His name was Harold Thornton. He and his wife Eleanor owned a sprawling estate outside the city, and they were looking for a gardener. "Do you know anything about plants?" Harold asked. Only that they don't lie or cheat, I answered with more bitterness than I'd intended. Harold chuckled. Fair enough. Ever worked with your hands? Not professionally, I admitted. Professional experience is overrated, Harold said. I need someone who appreciates beauty and isn't afraid of hard work. The cottage on our property comes with the job. I'm not a charity case, I said firmly. Good, Harold replied, because I'm not offering charity. I'm offering fair pay for honest work. The garden as healer. A week later, I moved into the gardener's cottage on the Thornton estate, a stone structure with weathered wooden beams and windows that faced east to catch the morning sun. And something extraordinary happened. My financial expertise meant nothing here. But as I learned to prune roses and nurture seedlings, I found a different kind of satisfaction. Immediate. Tangible. Results I could see with my own hands. No clients demanding impossible returns. No deadlines driven by ego. No betrayals hidden in closets. Just soil and growth and weather. For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. 6 months passed in a rhythm of seasons. Summer turned to autumn, painting the Thornton estate in fiery reds and golds. I learned which plants thrived in shade, which needed constant attention, which were hardy enough to survive pure neglect. Sometimes I saw parallels to human relationships that I tried not to dwell on. Harold and Eleanor became unexpected friends. They respected my privacy completely but included me in occasional dinners. They never pried, and I appreciated that more than they could know. The letter arrives. One crisp October morning, I drove into town for supplies. The local post office had become part of my routine. Arthur forwarded anything important to my P.O. box there. Usually, it was just financial statements. But that day, a thick cream-colored envelope waited among the usual mail. My name was written in Jennifer's unmistakable handwriting. My hands trembled as I held it. I stared at it so long that the postal clerk asked if everything was all right. Fine, I muttered, tucking the envelope into my jacket pocket. Back at the cottage, I placed it on the kitchen table and went to work in the garden, aggressively pruning back roses as if I could cut away my thoughts just as easily. By sunset, exhausted but calmer, I showered, made a simple dinner, and poured a glass of whiskey. Only then did I open the envelope. Inside was a 10-page letter in Jennifer's handwriting. The first line stopped me cold. "I've found you, Warren." She had hired a private investigator. They'd tracked me through my new bank account. Jennifer detailed her shock at my disappearance. Her confusion when Arthur refused to reveal my whereabouts. Her realization that I must have discovered the affair. But then she wrote something I didn't expect. "What you don't know is that it ended months ago. It was never anything real, just a pathetic attempt to feel something again." I took a long swallow of whiskey. My hands were steady despite the turmoil inside. She wrote about Emma finally confronting her. How her daughter hadn't spoken to her for weeks. How her friends gradually stopped inviting her places. How the big house felt like a mausoleum of her former life. The last paragraph hit hardest. "I don't expect forgiveness, Warren. I don't even expect a response. But I need to see you one last time. To say goodbye properly. To tell you these things face to face. I'll be at the Riverside Hotel in Portland next Tuesday, room 412. If you don't come, I'll understand, and you'll never hear from me again." I folded the letter slowly and placed it back in the envelope. Then I walked outside and stood under the stars, breathing deeply of the cool night air. She had found me. After all these months of silence and rebuilding, Jennifer had tracked me down. The weight of choice. Eleanor noticed something had changed. "The hydrangeas look neglected," she remarked casually as we strolled through the garden. "And so do you." "Just distracted," I admitted. "Distraction," Eleanor said gently, "is the mind's way of processing what the heart isn't ready to face. Whatever it is, Warren, remember that strength isn't about never falling. It's about how you stand up again." I nodded, unable to form words around the tightness in my throat. That weekend, I wrestled with the decision. By Tuesday morning, I knew what I had to do. The reckoning and redemption. Facing the mirror. I told Harold I needed the day off for personal business. Take all the time you need, he said, clasping my shoulder firmly. The garden will wait. I drove to downtown Portland with the windows down, letting the crisp autumn air clear my head. The Riverside Hotel was a modern glass structure overlooking the Willamette River. I parked in the public garage and sat in my truck for nearly 20 minutes, gathering courage. At exactly noon, I knocked on room 412. The door opened immediately. Jennifer stood there, different from my memories. Thinner, with streaks of grey in her hair she'd previously colored. Her eyes widened at the sight of my beard and weathered appearance. "Warren," she whispered, stepping back to let me enter. The room was standard hotel fare, a king bed, desk, 2 armchairs by the window. Her suitcase stood neatly in the corner. Her familiar perfume hung faintly in the air. "You look," Jennifer began. "Different," I finished for her. "So do you." An awkward silence filled the space between us. The conversation that changed everything. "Thank you for coming," she finally said, gesturing to the armchairs. "I wasn't sure you would." I sat down, keeping my back straight, hands resting on my knees. "Your letter didn't give me much choice." "I'm sorry," Jennifer said quickly. "Not just for finding you. For everything." "Why did you look for me?" I asked, cutting to the heart of it. "We both know our marriage was over the moment I saw those messages." "Because you disappeared without a word," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Because after 29 years, I deserved at least a goodbye." "And I deserved faithfulness," I countered, my voice remarkably calm. "We don't always get what we deserve, Jennifer." She flinched as if I'd struck her. "You're right," she said softly. "I just needed to explain." "You explained in your letter," I interrupted. "Richard was a distraction. You were bored, lonely. I wasn't there enough. I've heard it all before, Jennifer. Just not about us." Tears filled her eyes. "Is that what you think? That I'm making excuses?" "Aren't you?" I asked. "No," she answered firmly. "I'm taking responsibility. What I did was unforgivable. I destroyed something precious because I was weak and selfish." Her raw honesty caught me off guard. This wasn't a conversation I'd rehearsed in my head. "I'm not here for apologies," I said, watching her carefully. "I'm here because running away solved nothing. We need closure, Jennifer." She nodded, visibly gathering her composure. "Emma refuses to speak to me," she said softly. "She said she'll never forgive me for driving you away." "I'll talk to her," I replied. "She shouldn't blame you for my decisions. That's not fair to either of us." "That's generous of you," Jennifer said, surprise evident in her voice. "It's not generosity," I corrected her. "It's truth. You made your choices. I made mine." The unexpected gift. A heavy silence settled between us. 29 years of shared history, reduced to awkward pauses and careful words. "Are you happy here?" Jennifer finally asked. "Working as a gardener." The question might have seemed condescending from anyone else, but her tone held genuine curiosity. "I am," I answered honestly. "There's something honest about watching things grow because of your effort. No office politics, no client demands, just soil and plants and weather." "And the Thorntons," she said. "Arthur mentioned them when my investigator finally got him to talk." "Good people," I said simply. "They gave me space when I needed it most." Jennifer reached for her purse and withdrew a large envelope. "I've had divorce papers drawn up," she said, placing them on the coffee table between us. "Everything's split equally. The house is already on the market. I won't contest anything. I'm the one who broke our vows, Warren. I won't compound that by fighting over assets." Her accountability surprised me again. This wasn't the defensive reaction I'd expected. Then she pulled out a smaller envelope. "Emma is getting married in June," she said quietly. "Despite everything, she wants you to walk her down the aisle." My throat tightened. "She's engaged." To Christopher Matthews. They've been dating for about a year. He's an architect. Steady. Treats her well. Jennifer paused. You should be there, too. Whatever's happened between us, she needs her mother. The choice to forgive. As our conversation wound down, I found myself studying Jennifer's face, the familiar lines around her eyes, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when uncertain. Once I'd loved those details. Now they belonged to a chapter of my life that was closing. I should go, I said, standing and gathering the envelope of divorce papers. Jennifer rose as well, maintaining careful distance. I'm sorry, Warren, she said. Not just for the affair, but for taking so long to become the person who could admit it was entirely my fault. I nodded once, acknowledging her words without offering forgiveness that wasn't mine to give. Not yet, anyway. As I turned to leave, I paused at the door. Be well, Jennifer, I said quietly. The most genuine sentiment I could offer. The return home. Spring arrived at the Thornton estate in a riot of color. The tulips and daffodils I'd planted the previous fall were pushing through soil toward sunlight. I found a metaphor in their persistence that wasn't lost on me. I called Emma the day after meeting Jennifer. We talked for nearly 2 hours about her engagement, her work at the environmental law firm, and finally about her mother. She destroyed everything, Emma said, anger evident in her voice. No, I said gently. She damaged something precious. But destruction implies that the foundation was weak. Ours was strong once, Emma. Sometimes strong things can still break. And sometimes broken things can teach us what strength really means. The wedding day. June arrived with sunshine and hope. I stood in the groom's room at the church, adjusting my tie, a real one now, not the life of a gardener, and watching Emma in her wedding dress through the doorway. She was radiant. Happy. The kind of happy that only comes when you've learned to build your own foundation instead of relying on someone else's. Jennifer was there too, sitting quietly in the third row, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of regret. Tears of watching her daughter step into a new chapter. Tears of a woman who finally understood what she'd lost, and perhaps, if she was lucky, what she could rebuild. As I walked Emma down the aisle, I didn't think about betrayal or anger. I thought about gardens and growth. About how the hardest winters produce the most beautiful springs. I thought about the man I was supposed to stay, angry, vengeful, consumed by what was taken from him. And I thought about the man I'd become instead. At the altar, I kissed Emma on the forehead and placed her hand in Christopher's. Be good to her, I whispered. He nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of that responsibility. As I turned to walk back down the aisle, my eyes met Jennifer's for just a moment. There was no smile. No reconciliation. But there was understanding. And maybe, after months of absence and honest reckoning, that was the truest form of forgiveness. The life lesson. Here's what I want you to understand about this story. This isn't about a man who ran away and built a new life. This is about a man who had to lose everything before he could understand what really mattered. When I disappeared, I thought I was escaping betrayal. But what I was really doing was escaping myself. The version of me that had prioritized success over presence. The version that had been so focused on building financial empires that I'd lost sight of the real treasure in my own home. Jennifer made a catastrophic choice. There's no excuse for that. But my choice, to vanish without a word, wasn't noble. It was just another form of abandonment. The real transformation didn't happen when I learned to grow gardens. It happened when I learned to grow as a human being. It happened when I understood that strength isn't about never falling. It's about how you stand up. And more importantly, it's about who you choose to be when you do. Forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about deciding that your future is more important than your pain. I didn't forgive Jennifer because she deserved it. I forgave her because I deserved peace. And Emma deserved a mother. And I deserved to be the kind of man who could walk his daughter down the aisle with a clear conscience. The final truth. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed, I want you to know something. Your pain is real. Your anger is valid. But don't let those emotions make your decisions for you. Don't disappear. Don't make your loved ones pay for one person's mistakes. Don't become the villain in your own story just because someone hurt you. Instead, do what I eventually did. Face the pain. Acknowledge the betrayal. Then decide who you're going to be moving forward. Because here's the thing about life. It doesn't end when someone breaks your heart. It doesn't end when your marriage collapses. It doesn't end when everything you built crumbles to dust. It ends when you decide it's over. And if you're still breathing, reading this, listening to this story, then your story isn't over. The best chapters are still ahead of you. If this story moved you, if it made you think about forgiveness, betrayal, or second chances, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Have you had to forgive someone? Have you had to rebuild? Have you learned that strength looks different than you thought? And if you want to hear more stories about the human heart, stories about what it means to love, to lose, to rebuild, and to eventually find peace, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We have so many more journeys to take together. Thank you for letting me share this deeply personal story with you. Thank you for caring enough to listen. And thank you for reminding me that in a world full of noise, there are still people who crave authenticity and truth. This is Warren Harris. And this has been my story.